Planning Board for Washington County, Planning Board for December the 6th, 2016 is in order. This time we'll have the call to order, and we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. This time we'll have roll call.
Before I do roll call, if I could just do a friendly reminder to speak into the microphone so I can get your voices clearly on the recorder, that would be fantastic. Okay. Roger Hagan.
Here.
James Ursery, asked to be excused. Al Cohen.
Here.
Jim Ackerman.
Here.
David Morris.
Here.
Mike Park.
Here.
John Gay.
Here.
Victoria D'Angelo.
Here.
Hank Hamilton, asked to be excused. Cliff Nauer, asked to be excused, and planning secretary is present.
All right. I'd like to welcome each and every one of you to our meeting today. This time we'll have the approval of the agenda for December the 6th. Everyone will look over the agenda.
Mr. Hagan, I believe you had something about the questions from the floor?
Yeah, is this the time?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, perhaps we were advised by our attorney, I know that we do it here, the board does it, and down at Walsall we do. After number 6, questions from the floor, it cites the statute and things like that. My question was, is that the appropriate place to have that? Sometimes we may have someone here that, and they don't know what, if they want to speak on anything that's on the agenda or not, because they don't know what's being presented or they haven't heard the discussion. I'm wondering if there's some other way that we could present this statute, or another place on the agenda where we could present it, or maybe even if we have people, I know you're pretty lenient, as are the other chairpersons in the other places that I'm talking about, to allow someone to speak after something is presented. But the way this looks is that I have a chance after number 6 to speak on anything on the agenda, and where it says new business, there may be some things that either isn't on the agenda, or I don't know what the discussion on that's going to be, so I don't know if I want to speak or not.
Well, I think we should have, if we're gonna have new business, we need someone to register that before it comes up here. In other words, we should have somebody sign up there. I mean, I don't know, we haven't had any real issues with
No,
this.
we haven't, and it may be a non-issue. I'm just thinking, if I'm in the audience and you tell me that I have 3 minutes to speak on an agenda item, I may not know what to say because I haven't heard the discussion on that agenda item. And I know that you give some people a chance, or you give anyone an opportunity to respond. And so if it's okay, it's okay, but I'm just wondering, is it confusing where it's located on the agenda?
Sometimes I feel like if I tell somebody they got 3 minutes to speak on the item, I feel like I'm kind of like maybe, especially an elderly person. There's been some elderly ladies and gentlemen come here, and I feel like if I told them they had 3 minutes, I feel like I'm being kind of rude to them. Because, they're not gonna talk as fast as me and you and,
Sure.
But, and we're pretty lenient about it, I think.
I think you are. I think you're very lenient.
Yeah, I don't, there hasn't been any real problems with it, I don't think.
Yeah, can I make a suggestion as to how I've seen it being done before, that after an item is discussed, then you would open the floor up for comment, and then take a general public comment at the end of the meeting for anything that's not related to the items that are being discussed.
To open the floor would be a public hearing.
I'm sorry?
To open the floor in that manner would be more of a public hearing. A place on the agenda for the public to speak is much in order, and it has come before this board once before about moving that. Is there a reason it is under number 6 and not towards the end of the meeting?
No, I mean, it can be moved after old business. I mean,
Well,
pleasure of the board, really.
I thought it was right where it is at number 6, because we go through the agenda, we go through the minutes, then we read that up here, but we don't read it necessarily to them. Then we go to the other new business, and if there's any questions that someone wants to get up and express, but not just to bring new business. We don't take new business off the floor. That should come before you guys,
Right.
before it comes to the floor. Is that correct or not?
New business, I believe that they should have the opportunity to speak on any proposition, but I could be incorrect about that. So what I would suggest is that we speak with the county attorney to just ensure that we're doing it and following the statute.
Well, what I'm thinking, Mr. Chairman, is that, that needs to be someplace. The public needs to know they have an opportunity to speak. But when we get down to new business, tonight, it says planning for January also, but say we had 3 items there. We don't not say that they have to speak here, and you don't make them do that. You let them speak when the item is presented. I'm just wondering if that being placed there, if someone picked up that agenda, would they think they had to speak then, or they wouldn't have an opportunity to speak later?
Well, I think it's better having to speak when we're
That's
handling
what-
that issue.
That's what I
I
think.
mean, that's what we always kind of do. That's why I always say,
I think we've had that happen before. Someone would say, I want to speak when we're talking about so-and-so.
Right.
And then we've allowed them always to do
Yes.
that.
And then if somebody comes up there and they say what they're doing, then we'll say, are there any questions from the floor or any?
It's always been informal.
Yes, I mean, that's the way I could read that every time, but to them would mean nothing to nobody out there until we come to the issue.
That's right.
And if I told them you only got 3 minutes to speak, I think that's being a little, I don't know, a little rude, I think, you know.
I think we
You know,
give ample time for
Yeah.
everybody to be heard.
I mean, I can remember where there was a little elderly lady there was coming over for something and she was kind of mixed up and we just kind of let her go ahead and speak her speak and very nice to her, yeah. Any other suggestions to that? Any other comments to it? How about you guys? How do you feel?
We can just check with Mr. Goodman and see if we handled it correctly,
Okay.
since it's not been a problem.
Just see if that statement
Yes,
could
that's what
appear,
we'll do.
in another place that
Sure.
don't look like it's part of the agenda.
Okay.
Now it looks like it's part of the agenda, but
Mr. Chairman, could I throw in a word or two?
You got 3 minutes.
Have you ever heard of a lawyer being able to say his name in 3 minutes? Bob Hughes of Barron and Redding and in Panama City. One of the things that I've seen happen as I've attended the meetings over the last, I don't know, 3 or 4 or 5 years, when you have maybe 2 or 3, as we have had in the past, important issues, maybe a development order or a big new development or something, and the people who are going to present it bring people from many times from out of town, and we have a whole lot, and you may have 4 or 5 people for each one of those things. When you have the public questions or talk discussion ahead of that, I've seen it happen where you've had maybe 5 or 6 or 7 members of the public who get up to talk about things that are not on the agenda, and I guess you have to weigh is that as important or more important than the issues that have been put on the agenda that are going to cause a lot of maybe discussion amongst the members. And so in those instances, as somebody who might bring one of those issues to you and work very hard to get that to the point of having it on the agenda and having maybe 4 or 5 people here, consultants and engineers, to answer questions or make presentations. Of course, we'd rather have our issues brought before the public speaks. And in my experience, being before lots of different boards, I guess the general consensus not consensus, what I have seen is that the public who have to want to speak about things that are not on the agenda, they put them after the old and new business. I know that elected officials, rather than appointed officials, sometimes are more concerned about those people are voters and they want to let them talk first. But I don't know how you all feel about that, but I did want to put that on the table as something that might be considered.
I I think when someone comes and they've got an issue here and they've got a presentation, I don't think we look too much at the 3-minute rule. We want to make sure they get their point across to us, what they're trying to do. It's the person that came out there, and comes out there and elaborates on something that's not really on the agenda that the 3-minute thing is for, I believe.
We can have an unagended audience section too, and place that underneath that.
I've been places where you had to put your name on a board as you walk in, sign your name in, and what you want to bring before the board. And if it's not up there, then you don't get your chance to bring it up here.
We can do a sign-in sheet.
But we haven't had any problems or issues. I don't know if that's what we need.
That's how I've seen it done before, is you bring the items that are on the agenda up, and then after the presenter is done speaking, then you invite the public up to give their comments before it's actually voted on. And then there's a separate forum at the very end of the agenda, just for miscellaneous
And the other agenda
comments.
notice would be those that sign in on the sheet.
If they have the issue from that.
Yeah.
If they want
Yeah,
to
and that
speak
would be
on
the
something.
sign-in sheet where they say
Well-
what they're.
But we've been pretty relaxed about it because there's been people here that came from Vernon on that last issue and we let them go ahead and speak.
Yeah.
I mean, we knew they were here for some reason, so we went ahead and let them speak and say and it's worked out fine, I think. I don't know.
We had the 2 black ladies just recently that
Yes,
asked to speak on
yes, and there wasn't any issue with
it.
that.
Wasn't any
No.
issue.
All right, check with the attorney on that and we'll go from
Okay.
there. All right. Any other comments or questions on this? All right, Board of County Commissioners report.
Nope. I need a motion and a second
Oh,
for the
excuse me.
agenda and then the minutes.
All right,
I move the adoption of the agenda.
Yeah, I'll second it.
all in favor? All right, can we have approval of the minutes now, please? For November the 3rd, 2016.
Move to approve.
Your motion to approve, do I hear a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you. It's approved, it's unanimous. Now we come on to the Board of County Commissioners report by Ms. Victoria.
Okay, so we had a variance before you at the last meeting for a minor subdivision by Mr. Edwards. That item was tabled because it was not approved by the Vernon City Council and it still remains tabled. Scheduled to be re-looked at by the City Council in January at their workshop. We also had a future land use map amendment for the Dollar General in Caryville. That was also tabled due to a discrepancy with them getting their public notice out on time. It didn't meet the statute, so it had to be rescheduled for December. So it's scheduled to be heard for their public hearing at this BCC meeting in December. The development review for the Wausau Bait and Tackle Shop with the variance requests. That was approved with conditions. They were given 3 options in terms of the driveway location because the certified plans had not been submitted. Either to provide a letter from the adjoining property owner giving them permission to utilize the driveway on their property, or that they submit the certified boundary survey and plot plan showing that it was not on their property, or developing a new driveway. So that was the 3 options they were given.
All right. All right. Okay, new business.
So this item here is basically to set an agenda for the workshops that were proposed at the last meeting. 2 workshops have been scheduled, one for January on January 10th and a second on February 21st. Wanted to open this up for discussion. We have in your backup materials, we have a map, the future land use map broken into panels for you to look at in terms of potential target areas for land use changes. And we also have a list of some hot topics that the planning department has identified for you to look at as well. Recommendation might be to use one of these workshops for the target areas and perhaps the other workshop to discuss a few of these hot topics. and how we might proceed forward with that.
The February one, when?
The 21st.
What time will those workshops be?
5 o'clock.
We'll be here, right here,
Yes, sir.
so it'll be January the 10th.
January 10th at 5 o'clock and February 21st at 5 o'clock.
Okay, the first one's on our regular meeting, why's the second one not? Is it?
Because I was considerate of your wives, because the next one would have been February 14th.
My wife appreciates that.
So,
I'm looking out, I was just looking out.
well, I hope-
That chocolate day or what?
Roses, chocolate, teddy bear, whatever.
all right.
I have some things that I'm gonna send you on this, okay?
Okay. Is that in regards to the hot topics?
If I'm,
You want to send me some information on the hot topics?
yeah,
What I might say is, because I just gave these to you guys, that maybe we want to plan for the second meeting to discuss some of these hot topics, and perhaps on the first one, we can talk about the target areas. Does that sound good? Are there specific areas that we want to look at, looking at the panels, because we can bring larger maps of these panels if there are certain areas that you know that you want to target at this time?
Have that on the computer so we can randomly select them at that time if the question comes before
We could
us.
do that, we could bring them on and put them up on the screen.
That
Yep,
would be great.
okay.
Victoria, on the parking, could y'all look at that for sure? I know that was an issue on the development here in Chipley.
On parking standards,
Yeah, the standards.
that is one of the hot
I
topics
said
that are on here.
Yeah.
And so we have a lot of these hot topics. So what I would suggest is that the planning commission take a look and kind of prioritize which ones they want to discuss, and we'll work on them a little at a time.
Well, could you give us something in writing that says, so it says here parking, it says review parking standards. Could you give us a copy of that standards and say what the issues are, what the problems, what maybe we should?
And yeah, and so that's what I was thinking, maybe the workshop, where you kind of identify, okay, so these are the topic areas that we want to talk about in the workshop, so maybe we'll pick 3 or 4 that we want to talk about, and then we can discuss it further at that workshop.
Are these materials and agenda, those materials going to be available ahead of time for the public, for us to get a copy of?
Yes, we can put them up on the website.
And it'll be an agenda, and you're talking about targeted areas, are they already identified, or are these?
No, that's what the workshop will be for, to discuss potential targeted areas.
Well, I mean, like this is parking review the parking standards. I know we had an issue with that, I can't remember what actual the issue was, and evidently, he's familiar with the issue. So, but couldn't we get that in writing before that, say, well, on November the 1st, they had an issue with the number of parking spaces, da-da-da-da-da.
Yes, I believe the issue was that perhaps we should take another look at some of the parking standards and see if they're appropriate for the area.
There was some discussion about how different the parking standards with the city of Chipley versus the county, where I know that come up.
Okay, we can
There's a
do
huge
that.
difference, I think.
Okay.
And there was someone who wanted to move a business, wasn't it? Isn't that what the issue was? And there was a big
Yes.
issue about how many parking spots that had to be there?
You require bicycle parking and
Yeah.
Yes.
all kind of stuff that's not conducive
Yeah.
to Washington County.
Yeah.
And if I may, commissioners, if you remember when we did a future land use map update with the land development code and the comprehensive plan, there were strike-throughs that previous planner, Mr. Durance, did with the proposed, in blue underlining what it would say. So that's what she's saying, that we would discuss, what would the update would be with the land development code and the comp plan. So if it's a building under a certain amount of square footage, bicycle racks are not required, that kind of typing in there. if you recall the last update that we did.
So now that means
Be in
that
a
something
similar
more to us.
format, it'll be the same way that it was presented
That's
last
very
update.
helpful.
Yeah, so we give you the actual standards that are in the code right now, so that you can review those. And if you want to compare with the city of Chipley, we can also,
We
you
can
know,
get a
provide
comparison.
those as well. And so I think what we'll end up doing is essentially establishing a timeline, you know, once we kind of go through some of these things.
All right, so that's gonna happen on the 10th, is that correct?
Okay, so, yeah, so, we have one scheduled for the 10th. So, did you guys want to discuss the target areas on the 10th and hold the hot topics for the February workshop? Give you some more time to look over some of these topics, and we can retouch upon it in the January workshop as to which ones we want to discuss further,
I think we need more information, just a one-line item here don't tell you a whole bunch of zip.
okay?
You know what I mean? No, so, I mean, I keep using parking because that's, I see parking, yeah, okay.
You want the specific
I want
code?
something, what the problem was, what we
Kind
think.
of
it
like
should-
database amendment.
Yeah,
Well, it
something
wouldn't
so
be
you-
any specific identified problem specifically,
Yeah.
it would be in general for the whole.
Or there's, say, okay, there's a question about the number of parking spots that are required in bicycle and tricycles and whatever. So at least we know what we're talking about when we come, to the, you know,
I think if we do this one in January, and then maybe in January, you can give us the things that he's asking for, offer the hot topics, and we'll do those in February.
Okay, yep, we can do that.
Please help me again on February. Our meeting would be the 7th, wouldn't it? The first,
That would be the board meeting, but our workshop is the 21st. And that work, this is for the workshop, not for the board meetings.
we still have a board meeting at 7.
Yeah, the board meeting stays as is. It's just that we added an additional meeting for January and February. It's the first Tuesday of every month.
So,
No, the 7th should not be a Friday. The 7th should, February 7th is a Thursday.
I'm sorry, 10, never mind, okay.
So January 10th is our next board meeting. So the 7th, I'm sorry, yeah, January 10th is our first board meeting. The 17th is our workshop.
17.
I
Yeah.
thought you said what you said.
Yeah, I apologize.
That was an error.
That was an error.
January 17th is the workshop.
That's okay, I got this. Can I ask a question, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Is the targeted land use that will be discussed, is that heading towards a plan amendment that'll be sponsored by the county, or by the, where is it headed for?
It would be.
I ask that because my clients don't want to know about that.
Yeah, it would be headed by the
Yes.
planning commission.
Yes.
However, that's to
What
be
she said-
discussed
What she said was.
as to when, how, you know, all of those things. There's no particular plan in place right now.
But this is not something where citizens have come and requested land use changes?
No, it is not.
This is gonna be kind of like we did before,
Yes,
where
yes,
we,
to
with
identify,
the
you know,
planning commission,
potentially some
identify
more commercial
areas
areas, things of that nature.
and then brought that eventually in the form of a plan amendment.
Yes,
Yeah.
Probably what we're gonna do is do those things that are not having been correct in the past.
and take a look at those, and that's what will be discussed, is what does the planning commission want to address over the course of this year, next year, and essentially set a timeline.
The anomalies, okay?
I'm sorry?
The anomalies.
Yeah. Was there any other questions that we had in terms of the hot topic areas or the target areas? And, you know, you're welcome to,
The hot
you know, come
topic-
see me in my office as well in between meetings.
Are we going to prioritize the hot topic items? Is that what we're going to do before we start discussing them?
Yeah, we would do that at the January meeting.
Yeah, I mean, we won't be able to address all of these at once, so what we'd like to see is just to pick a few of them so that you guys can discuss them in depth.
Maybe start off with, I don't
I guess
know, 3
parking is
maybe?
one.
Start off with 3 items and then move forward from there.
We have had that parking issue come up before.
Okay.
Yeah, they don't have to be in this order.
Yeah.
And so that's what, we basically wanted to give you a bank worth of things that we've seen recently. And allow you to prioritize which ones you want to discuss, and then, you know, we can address those and then hold another workshop to address more of them.
I've got another question. Are these targeted areas, are these pre-planned fires, pre-planned targeted areas that come from you all to present to the planning commission, or is it just going to be things that come up that the members bring?
From what I've heard, I think it's gonna come from the planning commission. It's
So
not
in
gonna
other
be
words, there won't be a
presented
list
from the
of-
planning
There won't
department.
be a list of targeted areas presented.
No.
It will be what the planning commission
Not
members bring.
unless that's what the
up
planning
after.
commission requests of staff.
Okay.
It'll be of items that we see that's been a problem issue, and then we're gonna try to straighten it out, more or less, is that correct?
He's
Well-
talking about the targeted future land use map areas
Oh, I see, I'm sorry.
as
I
to
think
whether or
that's-
not we have a list of areas that we're looking at targeting.
Go ahead.
Yeah. I think that's going to, I think that in part is going to have to come from the staff.
Okay?
As I recall, Mr. Gruntz and Randy did lots of hours of saying, here's a bunch of places that are not compatible, the use is not compatible, and I think we went through that thing, it took a long time, and it looked good, and if I'm understanding what we're looking at here, future land use, we're going to do some more of that, we're going to find some other places that the use and the zoning designation or the planning designation is not the same.
Not compatible.
So, not compatible.
Right.
So we may not know where they are as well as you will.
Okay. And I think we'll have to work a little bit
And maybe
together on
something,
that.
and maybe both of us have to work on it.
Yeah, at previous meeting, I know you guys did come up with a few areas that you're interested in targeting, so I think if we start there, that would be a good way to do it, and we can start, you know, areas that you've seen driving around that you notice, you know, maybe could use to be changed. We could start there, and then, of course, we'll do the analysis.
Is that where this list came from here, this hot topic, what you're talking about? You said areas
No,
that
we're talking about the future land use
Okay.
map, so
So this has
this map
nothing to do
here
with-
with the
this
panels.
has nothing to do with that. This does.
Yeah, it's separate, because this would be the amendments. It's somewhat separate. It's one of those issues, but it's,
You have two items. You have the future land use map, and then you have the land development code and the comprehensive plan. They're both amendments, but they're done separately,
Okay.
if that makes sense.
so with this map, we're trying to identify if there's areas, and we had been asked previously to develop a way to, you know, track how we're ensuring that everything is consistent and compatible. And so one of those ways is to look at it panel by panel. You know, we can address, I know you guys said you wanted to look at the municipal areas perhaps, that was discussed at a previous meeting. So that might be where we start. Perhaps we'll look and see, you know, these are some of the municipalities, these are some of the areas we want to look at, and you can tell me what types of things you want addressed, and we can look at it further.
Mr. Chairman.
Dave, go ahead.
We've gotten ourselves in a lot of hot water with this future land use map about changing things that the property owners don't want changed. As far as compatibility, if someone comes before this council, before this county, and pays their fees to have a land use changed, and they're maybe not using it for that capacity, where are we talking about, what are we talking about doing here? Changing it back against their
No, this would be areas where you've identified that
non-conforming.
it could be
use.
non-conforming with, you know, it's labeled as one thing and it really should be labeled as something else.
Okay.
Or you
Well, no, we
have
want
passed
to-
by this area and you say, oh, this would be a good area for commercial, you know, or
We've
perhaps.
gotten in trouble doing that.
So I think one of the methods to that was to do the intent overlay.
Well, that's where that would go. there's a lot of parcels that have been redesignated that maybe have not come to fruition. We certainly need to be conscious of that.
Okay,
You all did, in the county commission, we did a huge, with that large scale plan amendment that targeted at trying to get as many of the parcels consistent in the comp plan and future land use map as what the use was. And then, as David said, there were a lot of places where, I guess Mike had come up with some of the ideas about, let's change this here, let's change that there. Wouldn't this be good to have this here? And there was some, it stirred up quite a bit of controversy. Some of them did.
Yeah.
And that's what I was wondering, whether this is gonna be a continuation of that process, or is it, you know what I'm talking about, Victoria?
yeah, and I think some of the concerns is that we're changing things that people don't want us to change. And I think that developing that intent overlay and the strategy with that was to allow people to opt into these uses that we feel like perhaps would be good in these areas, but maybe not everyone is ready to opt
Well,
into.
what happened last time with that large scale, that was the proponent really was the county.
Mhm.
The landowners were invited to put in, if they wanted to have something changed at that point, they were invited to make an application, which
Yes,
was
And that
really
would be-
simplified, because all you had to do was a request and a
Yeah.
map. And
and that was the intent overlay.
would that be the same thing here now?
That could be, if that's one of the strategies
Yeah,
that
would
the commission would
Could
like
be.
It could be the same thing.
to do, yes, so if it was commercial, perhaps that would be how we would do it.
Because that was a whole lot easier than going through that long, arduous process
Right.
of asking for a land use change
Yes,
okay.
And if I may add, one of the concerns was when we were changing the lakes to conservation and people thinking we were changing their whole entire property to conservation. I got many calls about that. So I think that was one of the concerns, but clarifying with the property owners, it's not your whole property, it's just the lake body that is being conservation, because you can't develop on the lake, obviously. So just a refresher memory about
and
that.
that's one of those items that are, as the hot topic, is those conservation areas, and whether or not the policy, the way it's written, the description fits the bill for how we designate those, or whether it's set enough as to the way that we go about approving and the standards that we place against those environmentally sensitive areas.
And so that we look at both sides of the coin, I suppose most of us, some of us, maybe most of us, like most of the people that are originally from Washington County or got a long-term history here, we're property rights people for the most part. But we do have to remember the history of comprehensive planning, and there may be some days, and I don't want to think about it any more than David does, there may be some days where some zoning things have to happen that the current landowner opposes. I don't think the commissioner's prepared to do that yet, but I remember one election campaign where a candidate ran his entire campaign on overturning the comprehensive plan. That was the Obamacare of his day. He ran his entire campaign. He was not elected, but he ran his entire campaign in the late 70s on overturning this. We didn't have comprehensive plan until 1975. We didn't have the first glitch bills and things like that in 79 and 80. And we are way down the road now. The last few years, because the economy has been what it is, in part, I think this is it, the economy has been where it is, not been a lot of development. Haven't been a lot of subdivisions, haven't been a lot of commercial, haven't been a lot of anything. But if that turns around, I mean, we don't like eminent domain either. But until just a few weeks ago, I thought I was fixing to lose my house because DOT said this is a good place to build a highway. So we just need to brace ourselves that we will have to choose some bad doses. We could have to choose some bad doses, not this year, not in the coming year, but at a point in time, and we need to just be conscious of that, and then we'll pass it up to Mr. Hawkins and whoever's serving at that time, and they're going to have to make some unpopular decisions. Could have to. And I think where the property owner has an opportunity to have their voice heard, I think we need to make sure that happens.
All right, any other comment on this?
Okay, so am I hearing correctly that we will discuss the target areas in January? Give you guys some more time to look over some of these hot topic areas. Please communicate with me if you have any questions, concerns about these. I'll try to provide some more information on the background of these for the next meeting. And then we'll go ahead in February to discuss the hot topic areas.
All right, sounds good.
Good?
So, okay, how about old business? We don't need approval of this, do we?
I don't think so.
Old business, any old business, gentlemen? County administrator, Doug, county engineer, Doug, county commissioners, county attorney, Doug. Anything else? Chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Chairman, just a question. What was the, do we know what the option that the Bay Capital Company has taken?
We don't know yet.
We adjourn.
Motion to adjourn, do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.